This Nitro Stout is delicious.
Oh, so good. But how much of a pain are nitrogen cylinders? Either having to hire a nitrogen cylinder just for that odd stout, or buying disposables and then throwing them away. It's kind of annoying and a bit wasteful. And the nitrogen cylinders don't even last that long because it's a non-liquefied gas. You can't fit that much in a cylinder, so you burn through the cylinders really quick on top of that.
So we've got some game-changing hacks of how you can get a Nitro Stout or a Nitro anything on tap, sin nitro.
So easy. And stay tuned because we're going to teach you how to do this and do nitro at home with a piece of cake and not too expensive at all.
So we've got a recipe that's based on a BJCP award-winning recipe, and it's actually one of our most popular kits that we sell. So we've got it in all grain version and fresh wort kit, and it's got around about 5% oats in there, so it's beautiful this time of year, velvety smooth, and we're going to trick it up in a few different ways. So how are we going to trick it up, Kee?
Well, we're going to trick this up into a few different ways. Obviously, it's a fantastic kit on its own, as you say, but it also makes a fantastic base because the oats in there gives this sort of creaminess, and that pairs up with a lot of other cool stuff you can do. So the creaminess works well if you just want to nitro it, for instance. We're going to add one of these kits and add some coconut. So we're going to go down that path with some of it. And then we're also going to get some coffee and then chuck some coffee beans in, because I think that's a great way to trick it up with that creamy oatmeal, milky coffee and coconut and stuff like that. So we're going to have a bit of an experimentation. And these are such easy things to do. This fresh wort kit is a piece of cake. And don't think because we're modifying it that's going to be tricky. You literally, this stuff is just chuck an extra few things in the fermenter and that's it. So really, really easy. The nitro, really great tricks at the end. So you've got to sort of watch that.
Yeah, some cool super easy ways to get it on nitro without even needing nitro.
Yeah,
so make sure you stick by.
All right, let's get into it.
So we've already got 6 litres of clean water in the kit or in the fermenter already. And this kit makes 21 litres of this stout.
Now there's a little bit of foam in there. Don't fear the foam, of course. Like it's just residual from the sanitizer.
Yep.
And I'm just going to tip in this kit. You've already done yours, Brady.
Yep.
So with the 6 litres in there, oh yeah, I might get some of that ethanol spray.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And hit this guy up. Might get a bit on my hands too, actually. Just never kind of be too sure.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we're going to drop that in the fermenter. Oh my God, it's always embarrassing when I'm doing this on film. Because I would give you a hand, spill something. Oh, how easy are the new Easy Grip handles on the fermenter?
Yeah. Being able to, especially like the integrated, if I ever need to take off one of the carb caps or anything like that. But the biggest game changer for me is just being able to swivel it off so easily without needing any tools.
I think that's the first time I haven't spilt it all over the floor.
I normally get it.
And why are we going for this one? Is this because you're English, Brady?
Not quite. So it is a traditional, I think an English ale strain is actually perfect. So you can go a little bit warmer, you're gonna get some of those esters, but because you've got so much flavor in there, those esters actually, you've got quite a complex drink at the end.
Yeah.
You don't need something super clean or anything like that.
And I suppose you don't want like mega dry either.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
so it's going to leave some of that. Yeah, it's going to leave some of those sugars behind.
Yep.
It's going to contribute to that velvety mouthfeel as well.
Yep.
So whenever I've added coconut to a stout or something like that, I always toast it because I'm terrified of like the oils in there, whether it's sanitary or not. But we're gonna add it in raw.
That's exactly it. It's actually something I learned from Molly Rose. So Nick from Molly Rose, I did a brew with him, this is a number of years ago, actually it was in the middle of lockdown. And we made this beer and he explained to me that if you want to get certain parts of the coconut out, like you want to get the milky parts out, the toasting process kind of destroys those milky components. And what happens is the nuttiness then comes through.
Right.
We don't want to do that. This recipe, this is oatmeal stout, the oats got the creaminess, got the milkiness from essentially we want to make milk, right?
Yeah.
You're going to basically get, kind of like making coconut milk. So we're going to basically blanch this. You don't want to boil it and cook the hell out of the coconut because you're also going to destroy a lot of the volatile aromas and stuff like that. So what we're going to do is get 80 degrees Celsius water. I'm going to put the coconut in there. You can use this desiccated coconut really fine. I actually find there's another coconut which has the slightly longer strands, like little noodles. And they're really good because they don't tend to get bogged up in stuff and you generally get quite good extraction as well. The main thing is this coconut is going in more or less raw other than a 10-minute blanch in water. So we're going to blanch it in water and chuck it in the fermenter, usually halfway through the fermentation process. That way there's some alcohol present. It's a little bit less risk of potentially introducing an infection, but it still has plenty of time to infuse and get all that good coconut flavor out. And I think this, I'm guessing this one is going to be very tasty when we put this one on nitro.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I mean, I'm still worried, but I reckon if Nick from Molly Rose has give you his backing on this, then
he's got such a great brew. If you ever check out Molly Rose, go to their brewery in Collingwood. It's one of my favourite spots in all of Melbourne. Love the brewery, good food. you know, amazing. And he's just attention to detail, one of the best brewers in Melbourne for sure. So total legend, go check him out. So we're gonna go 20 grams per litre. I reckon that's gonna give us a fair bit of sort of coconut flavour and aroma. And basically it's a real simple process. So literally blanch in water, 10 minutes in water, in 80-degree water. So not boiling water, don't boil too much. You're gonna have to get a thermometer. 80-degree mark's kind of like perfect for, you know, it really knocks back that bacterial load. It's not going to kill 100% everything, but it's going to knock back, you know, a large number of those bugs, I suppose. And then we're going to get that, pour it straight in the fermenter, and boom, away we go.
Okay, so coffee.
Yes.
There are so many ways to add coffee to a beer. I've done cold brew. Some people do like filter. Some people grind it up. But we're going to go a pretty easy method.
Easy method. Like I actually have done this quite a few times and just got the straight coffee beans, chuck it straight in the fermenter. And I've gone back to it every time because I find all the other methods are a bit of faffing around. Grind coffee tends to get jammed up in all the poppets and all that stuff. Really annoying. I'd also say that the grind coffee, you tend to extract some astringencies, which are kind of undesirable in this type of recipe. So I'd probably avoid it. Cold brew though, I've had some good ones made from cold brew. I think it's a really good method.
It's a bit of fannying about there.
Bit of stuffing around, especially because you have to make a fair bit of cold brew for a 20-litre batch of beer. Between 50 and 100 grams of coffee for a whole 20-litre batch, I reckon is pretty good.
Yep.
And really what it needs is about 2 days worth of time to infuse. If it's there for 3 or 4 or 5, not a big deal. But at minimum, somewhere between 2 and 5 days of contact with the actual beer itself in the fermenter. Try to avoid, you know, the first few days, because the first few days, that's where, you know, the yeast is cranking off and we don't want to introduce a potential wild competing yeast strain or bacteria or something like that. So it's always good to get a bit of that alcohol already present in a beer before you add some foreign material.
So we're gonna add it kind of like a late dry hop edition, like just before the tail end, like just at the tail end of fermentation. You've still got CO2 coming out. Toss it in then. Okay.
And the good thing is, like, if you've got fresh coffee and you've cut open the bag and it hasn't, like, you haven't left it open to atmosphere for too long, not too much junk or dust or other stuff coming in. And most coffee roasters will generally go out of the roaster and pretty quickly, doesn't touch too much other stuff before it heads in there. This Aldi coffee I find is not too bad. The Lux blend, quite a chocolatey note to this one, which I kind of like in this style of recipe, kind of the chocolate stout kind of thing going on. So I feel like that also works really well.
But it's an extra chance to like be flexible, so you can chuck in whatever your favorite coffee is. See what notes you're going to pick up.
Yep, totally. Day, say 3, 4, 5, whatever. Get the coffee straight in the top of the fermenter and just leave it. Do nothing else.
Okay. Okay, so the ferment went pretty rapidly, and then we tossed in our adjuncts, so the coffee in one and the steeped coconut in the other.
Now, with the coconut, it was probably a fair point. We used the very fine desiccated coconut, which you can use the thicker stuff, but if you go that fine stuff, probably a good idea to use like some type of muslin bag. So we've got these grain bags are perfect for it. Even those hop socks tied knot in either end or whatever, you put the coconut in there. Yeah. Because, well, Brady, you did the transfer.
And the cleanup.
And the cleanup. So, yeah, it gets a bit messy. So certainly that's something worth remembering.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So, Brady, you did Talos kegs for this one. So we've got Talos kegs in here. Now, Talos kegs, look, unfortunately are a single-use keg. Yep. But it's hard to do nitro with, you know, really efficiently in a way at home. And honestly, the single-use Talos kegs, they're a pretty good solution.
I think so. So I think there's like some myths about nitro that we've found out as we've been experimenting with lots of different things. There's 2 ways to do nitro. So Guinness obviously is the one that made nitro beers really famous. And what they were trying to do basically is replicate what you get from an English hand pull, but make the shelf life of their beer much bigger, much longer. So essentially you need that high pressure coming through a sparkler or something like that, basically knocking a low carbonated beer and knocking that CO2 out of solution as it hits the glass. And that's how you get that lovely creamy head. And a lot of people think it's because the nitrogen bubbles are smaller, but it's actually not true. So Guinness thought, right, we can't use CO2 to force it out of the keg because we'll overcarbonate the beer, but we can use nitrogen because we can put a high amount of pressure on the keg or whatever they're using, or the cask, and not worry about it overcarbonating. So they can get that high pressure coming through a perforated nitro spout. Yep. And still get that beautiful, creamy, cascading body.
So luckily, we don't need to get those English beer pump thingies in stock. So that's the main moral of the story.
Well, that's maybe.
I just wonder what's the point anymore, you know.
So that's kind of why we were kind of went down this path of all we actually need is a beer that's carbonated to around about 1.3 vol.
Yep.
And a high amount of pressure that's not going to dissolve into the solution.
Yeah, so unlike some products, look, there's certainly some machines out there, nitro machines, which will essentially get nitro from there in a totally flat beverage and actually push it into the liquid and then force it through the disc to sort of break up that gas and then disperse it through liquid. So coffee is a perfect example of that. People do nitro coffee, that's different. But with the actual Guinness, you do need some carbonation. Like some people think I can just go completely flat and then do that. And the only way that that would really nitro works is if you're actually pumping or forcing gas from the air, pushing it in, or using a nitrogen cylinder, pushing it in line.
Yeah, in line, so because it won't dissolve into the keg, so it has to happen just before, like as you're actually dispensing the keg.
It is a bit tricky. Sometimes getting that carbonation level right, you've got a couple options. You could basically use like one of the carbonation devices. I think you had one in a video recently, where you basically recirculate the beer using the super sucker pump through like a carbonation device.
Yeah, exactly, and that allows you to get it there perfectly without the worry about over carbonating, because it's you're pretty low pressures when you're trying to get it to 1.3.
Definitely. Or the other option is just to leave it sitting in like a keg or in your fermenter at a particular pressure, refer to your chart of what the temperature of the beer is, and then get saturation after about a week. And then you'll know that you're in that range. But if you get too high carbonation level as well, you tend to get more like a traditional beer head rather than that nitro effect.
That's exactly right.
So it is a balancing act. You guys can have a bit of play around. Now, the other thing is we've set this tap up with a disc in here. We've actually, this is where I think the standard NukaTap spouts for nitro come with, I think, the 0.5 mil disc, I think.
I think it's 5 holes.
5 holes, yeah.
0.3, I think.
0.3, is that the standard? I thought the bigger one was standard. Anyway, but
one of
you buy like a pack, and sometimes it is worth experimenting with also the discs in the tap, because the 0.3, if you get certain chemistry of the beverage, sometimes the 0.3 works better, sometimes the 0.5 works better, and also depending on what pressure you're using, one works better. So it is a little bit of experimentation when you get it right. But at the moment, we've got the...
this is the 0.5 3-hole.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
And I think that's got this beer kind of singing. So all you do is basically just swap it out as well. So it's just a standard NukaTap, swap out your old spout. Pretty cheap as well, that. $8, something like that.
And let's give it a pour. That's what we've been waiting for.
Okay.
So...
Hey guys, I just want to jump in here and explain why we're using a Talos keg compared to a normal keg. So a Talos keg has a bladder inside it. So the beer goes inside the bladder and the dispensing gas goes around the bladder. It essentially squeezes the beer out. So what that means is we can crank up the pressure really high, like Guinness do with nitrogen, without the risk of over-carbonating the beer, because that gas never interacts with the beer. So you can crank it really high. You can even use it compressed air or any type of gas you want, really, because you can't oxidize the beer or anything like that. So you can crank it really high, squeeze the bladder, zero risk of over-carbonation, and it dispenses beautifully, just like a nitro pour. All right, back to the video.
Yeah, this is obviously... 2 full kegs. We've got the, which one's hooked up first?
And we got coconut. The coconut.
Sweet.
Now, I was actually really worried about this beer because I thought the oils from the coconut were just going to destroy the head. But it's delicious.
Now, we have to thank Molly Rose for this one, because Nick from Molly Rose, he's the one that, gave us this recipe and suggested that you should use, raw coconut. And every other recipe I've ever seen on the internet, they always suggest, like, toasting the coconut, which... I think we're going to find out how that works.
Okay.
Moment of truth.
Cheers, mate.
That just looks so creamy. And I can tell you, the coconut is extreme. I would say, man, it's a lot of coconut. That is so coconutty.
It's super coconutty.
Yeah. Wow. How much coconut was that again? Is that like half a kilo? I don't feel like it was a lot in the recipe.
It's about half a kilo,
yeah. Man, that is real coconutty. So... which I like. Tight head, look at that, like tight bubble on there. Good cascading effect. You should have seen that as it came out of the tap, it was just like really cascading into those kind of waves. And the, that opposite direction kind of waves you typically get.
And it's pretty mesmerizing when you see the cascade and you're like, yes, I've nailed it. And like the head just sticks to the beer. It's not really like falling away.
So those fears of, the oils out of the coconut destroying the head, I would say dispelled.
I think you won that one. You and Nick won that one.
Yep, that's it. Thanks, Nick.
But yeah, I'd actually say it's really coconutty, but it's delicious.
Yeah,
such a good, so coconutty. You get it on the aroma as well. It's just...
yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, so glad we didn't toast it.
I think the coconut, compared to toasting, you've even got that like velvety kind of... I think you got the nitro kind of giving it a bit velvety, but I think the almost like coconut cream.
Coconut cream or coconut milk.
Yeah.
So let's try the coffee. Good one, Brady. That is a beautiful pour, and look at that velvet on top. It is just like, once again, extremely tight bubble and definitely looks the part.
It's so much coffee.
It's quite a lot of coffee. But it's kind of amazing, isn't it? Because we didn't actually put that much coffee in there in a whole 20-litre batch. And it has really come through. A lot of people think that, because it's the unground bean, that it won't infuse. But it really, because it's in there for a whole week, I think you'd be getting like pretty close to 100% extraction.
That was my concern, because I've only ever done like cold brew before, where I've already extracted the coffee flavour. So I was like, there's not that much surface area on a bean. But I suppose if it's in there long enough, it's really beautiful. Like it's such
beautiful.
a smooth coffee flavour.
And because the coffee's never been heated or gone through espresso machine or anything like that, it's like there's no harsh coffee over extracted bitterness.
So I think some people like add filtered coffee or like hot brewed coffee or even espresso.
And that's definitely a problem sometimes. Yeah, people get like a little bit too high extraction. Don't factor that into the recipe with a hop bitterness, but really I think the bitterness from this is pretty much entirely from the hops. From the hop bitterness.
Yeah, and I think honestly, when I've done cold brew previously and things like that, and it's a bit of a pain messing around with making cold brew and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to toss the beans in. It's like
it's so easy.
The result, it's delicious.
Yeah, it's so good.
Now, Kee, not everyone has Talos kegs, and there's a few other ways you can do this. So you could. One thing I used to do is I used to crank up the CO2 pressure, pour my beer, turn off the gas, burp the keg, which it wastes a lot of gas. But it does get a pretty good effect. But you got to make sure as well. You got to be on top of it to make sure you're degassing the keg so that you don't have any risk of overcarbonating the beer and stuff like that in your corny keg. You got some methods.
Little solution for you. So there's like a little bit of a hack here you can try at home. So let's say that you don't want to do what Brady's done and like let's say increase the gas pressure on the whole keg itself. What you can do is just use a PET bottle. Now the reason I love this solution is because then you're only really putting nitro, and obviously this is going to get exposed to oxygen because I'm going to pour it out of the tap, but I'm not wasting much gas, and it's really quite a fast process. So it means that you just take this, fill up your products. I've got the coffee out here. Fill it up into a bottle like this. I actually find, like, generally speaking, these 500ml bottles are a little bit on the small side. Typically what I would do with this is maybe get one of these like 1 litre bottles, about right, I'd say. And because it's getting exposed to oxygen, I don't have to worry about it because I'm going to drink essentially this whole lot.
That's a single serve.
One sitting, yeah. So I go like that. Hook it up to this, like so. Now I'm using the NutriTap Mini for this. The same type of thing applies. I've got the disc in here. I think it might be the 0.3mm by 3 holes in this one, I think at the moment. And I just find this works really well because obviously you can put a big tap onto this as well, but like I just find the NutriTap Mini is about the right size for this type of thing. Oops, got to turn that off. Yeah, made that mistake plenty of times. And then you got to hit it with gas. So I thought it might be a good excuse to pull out this regulator. There's a new one that goes directly on top of the soda stream. This is a direct acting regulator. So this is one where the diaphragm is got a new pattern on it. The diaphragm pushes down on the pin of the actual cylinder. So there's no seat and seat cap assembly. So I'm going to hook this up. I've got the regulator set to about 50. It was slightly over 50 PSI just on this digital gauge here. And let's see how she goes. I'm going to pour this into the glass like this. Oh, look at that creamy goodness.
Yeah, so I actually love this. I always take this when we are camping and stuff like that because it's super lightweight, super tiny. Pour out a beautiful Nitro Stout when you're in the middle of the bush.
Now, there's one caveat when you're using this type of little setup is because there's only a small amount of liquid in here and a decent amount of surface area, if you have this at 50 PSI, it very quickly will overcarbonate. So one thing I will say is as soon as you hook up that gas, you don't really want to shake it at all because that certainly will overcarbonate it. Then you'll get more of that carbonated type of head rather than the creamy nitro head. And the other thing is, just make sure you don't leave it too long sitting there. So you really want to fill up what you're going to drink in that session, push it through the nitro and the NutriTap Mini, and then away you go, you're done. That's it.
So that's it.
Till next time, guys. If you like to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, hit subscribe now, and of course, hit the notification bell so you get notified when new videos land. That's it. See you next time.
Never buy another nitro cylinder again.
See ya.
Cheers.